Coal. A hard black mineral that is found below the ground and burnt to produce heat. For example, I put more coal on the fire. Cocktail. A drink usually made from a mixture of one or more spirits, equals strong alcoholic drinks, and fruit juice. It can also be made without alcohol. For example, a cocktail bar, a cabinet, a lounge, shaker.
Coffee.
Coffee. The roasted seeds, called coffee beans, of a tropical bush, a powder made from them. For example, ground/real/instant coffee.
Collaboration. The act of working with another person or group of people to create or produce something. For example, it was a collaboration that produced extremely useful results.
Commission.
Commission. An official group of people who have been given responsibility to control something, or to find out about something, usually for the government. For example, the Commission is expected to report its findings next month.
Considerable. Great in amount, size, importance, etc. For example, the project wasted a considerable amount of time and money.
Constant. Happening all the time or repeatedly. For example, there were constant interruptions.
Constantly. All the time, repeatedly. For example, fashion is constantly changing.
Consumption. The act of using energy, food or materials, the amount used. For example, the production of fuel for domestic consumption equals to be used in the country where it is produced.
Continually. In a way that is repeated many times so that it is annoying. For example, they argue continually about money. Cook. A person who cooks food or whose job is cooking. For example, John is a very good cook, equals he cooks well. Cook. A person who cooks food or whose job is cooking. For example, John is a very good cook, equals he cooks well. Cooker.
Cooker. A large piece of equipment for cooking food, containing an oven and gas or electric rings on top. For example, a gas cooker.
Cooking.
Cooking. The process of preparing food by heating it. For example, my husband does all the cooking.
Corrupt. Willing to use their power to do dishonest or illegal things in return for money or to get an advantage. For example, it was seen as the only way to overthrow a corrupt regime.
Corruption. Dishonest or illegal behavior, especially of people in authority. For example, allegations of bribery and corruption.
Cow. A large animal kept on farms to produce milk or beef. For example, to milk a cow.
Cream. Between yellow and white in color. For example, a cream linen suit.
Create. To make something happen or exist. For example, scientists disagree about how the universe was created.
Creation.
Creation. The act or process of making something that is new, or of causing something to exist that did not exist before. For example, job creation needs to be the top priority.
Creative.
Creative. Involving the use of skill and the imagination to produce something new or a work of art. For example, a course on creative writing equals writing stories.
Creativity.
Creativity. the use of skill and imagination to produce something new or to produce art. For example, creativity and originality are more important than technical skill.
Creator. A person who has made or invented a particular thing. For example, Walt Disney.
Creature.
Creature. A living thing, real or imaginary, that can move around, such as an animal. For example, respect for all living creatures.
Crisis.
Crisis. A time of great danger, difficulty, or doubt when problems must be solved or important decisions must be made. For example, an economic/a financial crisis.
Crop. A plant that is grown in large quantities, especially as food. For example, sugar is an important crop on the island.
Cup. A small container that is like a bowl in shape, usually with a handle, used for drinking tea, coffee, etc. For example, he filled the cup with water.
Cupboard.
Cupboard. A piece of furniture with doors and shelves used for storing dishes, food, clothes, etc. For example, kitchen cupboards.
Dairy. Made from milk. For example, dairy products produce. Dairy. Made from milk. For example, dairy products produce.
Deadly. Causing or likely to cause death. For example, a deadly weapon or disease. Death. The fact of somebody dying or being killed. For example, the anniversary of his wife's death. Defeat. To win against somebody in a war, competition, sports game, etc. For example, defeat somebody/something. Deficit. The amount by which money spent or owed is greater than money earned in a particular period of time. For example, a budget, trade deficit.
Delicious.
Delicious. Having a very pleasant taste or smell. For example, who cooked this? It's absolutely delicious.
Detailed.
Detailed. Giving many details and a lot of information, paying great attention to details. For example, a detailed description of the events.
Development. The steady growth of something so that it becomes more advanced, stronger, etc. For example, a baby's development in the womb. Diet. The food and drink that you eat and drink regularly. For example, to eat a healthy.
Dinner.
Dinner. The main meal of the day, eaten either in the middle of the day or in the evening. For example, it's time for dinner.
Discourse.
Discourse. A long and serious treatment or discussion of a subject in speech or writing. For example, discourse on something.
Discrimination.
Discrimination. The practice of treating somebody or a particular group in society less fairly than others. For example, age/racial/gender/sex discrimination equals because of somebody's age. Dish. A flat, shallow container for cooking food in or serving it from. For example, a baking/serving dish.
Dishonest. Not honest, intending to trick people. For example, beware of dishonest traders in the tourist areas.
District.
District. An area of a country or town, especially one that has particular features. For example, the City of London's financial district.
Doctor.
Doctor. A person who has been trained in medical science, whose job is to treat people who are ill or injured. For example, you'd better see a doctor about that cough.
Donate. To give money, food, clothes, etc. to somebody, something, especially a charity. For example, donate something to somebody, something.
Drama.
Drama. A play for the theatre, television or radio. For example, a costume period courtroom crime drama.
Dramatic.
Dramatic. Sudden, very great and often surprising. For example, a dramatic increase / change / improvement / shift.
Dramatically.
Dramatically. Very suddenly and to a very great and often surprising degree. For example, prices have fallen dramatically.
Drink.
Drink. A liquid for drinking, an amount of a liquid that you drink. For example, can I have a drink?
Drown.
Drown. To die because you have been underwater too long and you cannot breathe. To kill somebody by holding them underwater. For example, 2 children drowned after falling into the river.
Eat. To put food in your mouth, bite it and swallow it. For example, I was too nervous to eat.
Echo. The reflecting of sound off a wall or inside a particular space so that a noise appears to be repeated, a sound that is reflected back in this way. For example, there was an echo on the phone and I couldn't hear clearly.
Educator. A person whose job is to teach or educate people. For example, adult educators equals who teach adults. Electricity. A form of energy from charged elementary particles, usually supplied as electric current through cables, wires, etc. for lighting, heating, driving machines, etc. For example, materials that conduct electricity.
Emission.
Emission. The production or sending out of light, heat, gas, etc. For example, the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Escalate. To become greater, worse, more serious, etc. To make something greater, worse, more serious, etc. For example, the escalating costs of healthcare.
Essence. The most important quality or feature of something, that makes it what it is. For example, his paintings capture the essence of France.
Establish.
Establish. To start or create an organization, a system, etc. that is meant to last for a long time. For example, the committee was established in 1912.
Evolutionary.
Evolutionary. Connected with evolution, connected with slow steady development and change. For example, evolutionary theory.